record. All right,
Hey.
welcome. My name is Thomas Fanner, founder of Drive Life Performance. We are here with my longtime accountability partner, Gabe West. He is going to be our physical development coordinator. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Gabe.
All right. Well, my name's Gabe West, and as Thomas said, my responsibility for this is to be, coordinate all things physical development. And my background in that is all over the board. And we're talking everything from just being a lifelong athlete all the way up through college. Although it wasn't necessarily a college sport, I did compete in various activities on my own. And then I guess it goes as far the opposite direction as far as education. And I guess we could dive into that a little bit more depending on what you got planned for questions here, but that is the short of it.
Right on. Cool, brother. All right, so your area of expertise, like you said, is exercise. What drew you into this, or what is your story around how you fell into the journey of exploring exercise and movement?
So I have had a lifelong obsession with fitness, and truly it started from the time I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I kept bugging my parents for a pull-up bar, which is maybe a little bit of a bizarre gift to ask at that age, but it was something I was interested in. I was always fascinated with physiques growing up, and really looked up to like strong individuals. And then that sort of flowed as I got older. I went through my high school sports career, struggled with some injuries, and suddenly I was like, hey, I want to learn more about this stuff and how I can best put together a program where I can keep my progress growing when it doesn't come to a screeching halt because of injuries. And that led me to exercise science. And I went through a program at Spokane Falls Community College, got my Associates of Applied Science there, ended up transferring over to Eastern Washington University, got my bachelor's degree. And through this whole journey, what was kind of interesting about that was that I did my degree in reverse. And what I mean by that is at the time I went through this program, Spokane Falls had what was called an articulation agreement with Eastern, meaning I could do all of my upper level courses first and then go and do my general education stuff later. So what was great about that is after my first year in the program, I went out and started personal training and doing the real thing live, working with people when I was like 20 years old. And that was an awesome experience because not only was I learning, I was also being able to practically apply what I was learning in school at the same time. And that afforded me the opportunity to gain a lot of experience. And over the course of about 2 years, opened my first gym. And, I've owned 2 different gyms now at this point in time. And oddly enough, just a couple of years after graduating with my bachelor's degree from Eastern, I actually went back to Spokane Falls Community College and taught as an adjunct professor inside the same exercise science program that I went through. So that's kind of my experience in it. I've played in all facets of the industry, and it's been a lot of fun.
Right on, man. Thank you. So you went all the way from being a student within just a few years to being the teacher of the same class that you just took.
Yeah, it was kind of bizarre because I was actually standing up in front of the exact same room that I took all my exercise science courses in. There was like a one designated room that we always went to for class, and I'd stand up there and I was teaching. It was a pretty surreal experience getting to be the person leading the way, so to speak.
What did you learn through that experience as far as how to teach people, and obviously through your career too? And that's a big part of this camp is teaching people through movement and exploration and adventure, through your experience in teaching at the community college. Mm-hmm. And teaching people as a trainer and being a gym owner. What did you learn about passing on knowledge and movement skills to others?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I would probably say the biggest thing I learned is that it was extremely important to meet people where they were at, because you were meeting different people at different places. Some people came in and they may have had some sort of experience with weightlifting and maybe had some decent coaching in the past. So, the form fixes or the corrections that were taking place were more in the minutia rather than trying to get gross movement patterns, which would have been the case when I was dealing with somebody who maybe had no prior experience with anything athletic. And it's meeting people where they're at's really important, and not just on the physical side, but on the mental and emotional side as well. Training a 9-year-old is very different than training someone in their 40s. Meeting them where they're at mentally, emotionally is extremely important, and understanding what's going on outside of the gym the other 23 hours of the day that could be impacting them inside the gym, or really inside whatever training regimen it is that they're doing.
Nice. Love it, man. Love it. So that kind of comes into this next part of how has, this camp and the whole program is not just about one facet of you as a man, but you as an entire man, mental, physical, emotional. How has exercise and exploring your body and movement helped you grow as a person in other areas of your life?
I would say that exercise has helped me grow in other areas of my life by, one, just becoming more aware of who I am. When you're going through something that is challenging, if you are physically exerting yourself on a consistent basis and putting yourself through struggle, essentially, then you find out really quick who you are, because it kind of exposes things that are difficult. You kind of see where your mind wanders when you're hit with difficulty, and how you kind of learn how you're going to deal with adversity. And the cool thing about it was that I ultimately learned how to deal with adversity and discomfort in ways that were productive, and exercise is a really productive way to go about it. So I would say that was probably it, was just learning how to take adversity and make it something that works in your favor.
Nice. So you took those challenges you felt when you were on the wrestling mat or had a bar on your back, and you applied it into other areas of your life, so that when it was hard to get whatever momentum you needed to get a business done, you ran into obstacles, you're saying you're able to take that experience and transfer it over into overcoming obstacles within your life.
Yeah, exactly. Because ultimately, when you're faced with a challenge, you have a choice, right? You always have a choice when you're faced with a challenge. You can either let it roll you up and then get knocked over by it, or you can choose to go ahead and work your way through it. Try to approach it in a calm, cool, collected fashion, and you may not go through the obstacle, so to speak, but you may wiggle your way around it. And usually it just takes that sort of perseverance, I guess, in order to do that. And there's a lot to be learned within the physical realm, that definitely carries over into other areas of life. And like you said, man, business endeavors is actually a fantastic example, because nothing really goes exactly as you planned ever in life. And I think most people can relate with that. Like, you always have a plan, right? And then something happens partway through your plan that kind of screws the plan up. And then you're like, how do you respond to that? All of a sudden you're thinking on the fly and hoping that something works out in your favor. And the only way you really get skilled at that is by practicing it consistently.
Right on. Love it, man. Great stuff. So if you could give your 17-year-old self one piece of advice, and this could be movement related or non-movement related. If you give your 17-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
If it were movement related, I would say be patient. That would be the first thing I would say, because I was very guilty of overtraining and hitting the gas pedal. There are a lot of very common streams of thought that you see online that are just like, yeah, just push through the pain, blah, blah, blah. And it's okay to push through discomfort to some degree, sometimes that's necessary, but there's also time to listen to your body. And there's also time to take those rest days, because ultimately you need them to recover and to get strong. And if you try and accelerate the process by not taking rest days, what you're going to run into is a world of hurt, which I learned the hard way through having multiple surgeries. Oh. And that would be the thing that I would say physically. If it were a piece of advice that wasn't related to anything physical, it would be to seek out mentors in areas of life who already have what it is that you want, and learn from them, because that is ultimately the fast track to success. If you can find someone who already has what you want in the area of life that you are looking to better yourself in, and you can learn from that person, it really does put you on the fast track to getting where you want to be.
Nice. So surrounding yourself with a group of mentors that can elevate you in whatever sector of your life that you're interested in to get to that level. I love that. Is you can only go as far as you can see, right? Like what was it? The quarter mile or maybe the mile time, the 4-minute mile. Nobody ever did it. And then once it happened over and over and over and over.
Yeah, exactly. You're spot on. And that's the thing is like, it's so funny to me because it's almost like it's so normal, right, to have a coach in any sport. Like it's not even something people question. They're like, oh yeah, it's like sports, you need a coach. And I'm like, why don't we have coaches in all areas? Why don't we have coaches for relationships? Why don't we have coaches for finances? Why don't we have coaches for like really the basic life skills that we all should possess? Like, why don't we have coaches for all that? Like we've already figured it out in the area of sports, but if you just transfer that to all areas of life, like, hey, mentors are important. People who have been there and done the actual thing you're looking to do. I don't know. It just seems like if that caught on, we would all be on a much better path.
Heck yes. Well, I know a thing that might help some people with that. So we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
All right. So the next one's for the parents. So if you could give the parents of a 17-year-old young man piece of advice surrounding their son's exercise and movement habits, what would that be?
I would say number one, nurture their interests that already exist. Because I have never met anybody in my life who doesn't like something that is physical. And when we think of exercise, I think a lot of times we think of like this real, like tough training inside of a gym setting, but hiking's pretty physical. Rock climbing's pretty physical. Hunting and packing out an animal is pretty physical. So like just nurture the interests that already exist and let them explore those, you know, and again, back to what I said previously, help them find mentors in those areas too, because if it's something that you yourself haven't done as a parent, you can definitely help in getting them started, help them learn some of the fundamentals. And how cool is it to like learn along with them? But there is going to become a certain point in time when they are going to get to that next level. They're probably going to need some more personalized guided experience with someone in that specific area. So I just say nurture the interests that already exist, and then you're not going against the current.
Right on. Great advice. Yeah, just having that support and the things that we feel like, just that analogy you used, the current, right?
Yeah.
That young man feels a pull in that direction, and to know that there's another boat alongside them that's supporting them in that is really, really powerful. And you don't need to be pulling them or pushing them, but just know that you're there and you're supportive and not trying to pull them away from the current, because that's just more work for the parent, more work for the kid, and less in the direction that they're trying to go.
That's exactly it. You're just really helping them navigate the waters, so to speak, right? They're going to go the direction that they're already interested in, and why not just kind of help them navigate that in the best way you can? And I think that is the biggest piece of advice I would give parents, because in my experience coaching, I have actually had parents try and push their kids into doing sports or exercise sessions that they didn't want to do. And it was a miserable experience for me as a coach, and it was a miserable experience for the kid as an athlete. So that being said, not a lot of productivity came out of that. But if I had somebody who was already fired up about it because it was already a pre-existing interest of theirs and their parents were just nurturing that, it was a completely different outcome.
Right on. Cool. So Gabe's going to be involved in the Unlocking Manhood Camp. He's going to be one of the counselor mentors throughout the week of adventures and learning from other mentors, similar to what Gabe's been talking about this afternoon. So Gabe, what are you most excited about with this camp coming up this summer?
I'd say I'm most excited about learning about the challenges that the young men are facing today through their own lens, right? Like, I mean, ultimately, we all have our perception of what those things could be, but until you hear it directly from the person themselves, someone, let's say like 15, 16, 17-year-old young man who comes and says, these are the challenges that they're facing in today's generation. I'm looking forward to hearing about what those things are and ultimately seeing what we can do with our own life experience to help guide them through that, because there's always solutions.
Right on. I love that. Listening to where the person's at so that they can, you can have an understanding of where to guide them based on where you're at. Similar to what you said with your exercise, you got to meet them where they're at.
You have to give them a chance to talk. And I think a lot of times it's easy when you have more life experience than someone to just go ahead and start telling them how it is. But if you don't give them the chance to speak first and for them to tell you what it is they're experiencing, it's going to be pretty tough. It's just back to the whole current thing, right? Like you might be going the wrong direction and why not to work with it rather than against it, just by giving them an opportunity to speak and get a little vulnerable. And ultimately, in my eyes, vulnerability is the foundation of trust. So if they don't have a chance to get vulnerable with me first, they don't have the chance to, I don't have the chance to show them that I am trustworthy.
Right on. Cool. Great stuff, Gabe. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for everybody to watching today. If you have any questions, please send us an email. We'll get back to you and give you whatever information about the program that we can. We're excited to reach out into the Pacific Northwest and help elevate young men to become the best version of themselves. And click the link below. If you're interested in the camp, you can register for a free consultation, and we will see you in the next episode.
It sounds awesome. Thanks, Thomas. I appreciate it, man.
See ya. All right.